Welcome to the Rural Dispatch, the podcast delivering stories from rural America. I'm your host, Allie Behrens. Headquartered in rural Iowa, I help run a nationwide livestock transportation company, and I'm here to bring you stories from the people who help shape this industry and our rural communities. Whether you're a trucker, livestock producer, or rural entrepreneur, this show is for you. Each week, we explore the realities of rural business life, from the highways to the fields and everything in between. So buckle up and let's dive into today's episode. Okay, before we jump in, I just want to say that this is not a political podcast. Today's guest is Adam Steen, and for those who don't know, Adam is running as a candidate for the next governor of Iowa. We're going to cover a lot today, from leadership, failure, faith, and what shapes a person long before they get to the point they're at now. So let's get into it. Adam, welcome to the podcast.
Well, thank you. Honored to be here.
Yeah, I'm excited that you're here. And how did you end up in Carroll today?
So as I'm campaigning for governor across the state, we're doing the best we can to, one, hit every single county, but then also get back to areas where we see lots of opportunity for advancement. As I campaign, I'm looking for things that my administration can do to not just enable Iowa in a lot of different areas, but enhance Iowa in a lot of areas. And the Carroll community and the entire area around here has a ton of opportunity and a ton of things to celebrate. And the more I can learn on the ground, the more I can benefit the state when I become governor.
So let's maybe start there. Why? How did you get here?
I love that question. So I will try to keep this somewhat succinct, but really my story started in 2002. I'm from Indianola originally, but in 2002, I was on a baseball scholarship at Minnesota State Mankato, was drafted by the Philadelphia Phillies, and thought that that's what I was going to be my whole life, was a professional baseball player. 2 short seasons in, they gave me a plane ticket back home and said, "We don't want you around anymore." So I had to figure out what I was going to do. And so I spent the next really 6 years working with my father in investment banking and working with business owners and businesses all across the state of Iowa. I became a guy that would find businesses that had opportunities, and we would help them grow, either through joint venture, strategic partnership, or some sort of a capital raise event. Got very, very good at that. But I had a heart change at 30 years old and recommitted my life to Christ. Physically felt my heart change when I made that recommitment and sort of decided I was going to live for the Lord and not for myself. And that led me to meeting my now wife, Casey. We met 14 years ago. We've been married 13 years. And then I started studying my worldview, started studying the country, started studying my faith, and just sort of started planning and preparing for high levels of leadership, whether that was going to be in politics or business. And ultimately, through a series of different business activities, got on the governor's radar. So Governor Kim Reynolds, she recruited me into her cabinet 5 years ago. For 5 years, I ran the operations of the state of Iowa in a lot of different areas, became sort of known as a special projects guy for the state. And when the governor announced she wasn't going to run, I knew that this was the moment to jump in. I had to preserve and protect the culture of Iowa, and that required my wife's buy-in. It required my boys' buy-in, and we announced our candidacy about 6 months ago, and we've not looked back. So I jumped in the race for governor to preserve and protect the culture and freedom that Iowa has.
I love that. And I suppose you probably are sacrificing a little work-life balance in that too, but it probably looks a little different for you.
It looks way different for me right now. So I announced my candidacy on August 19th. The morning of August 19th, I resigned my job. So I am currently unemployed as I run this campaign. Thankfully, my wife, and we knew going in that what this was going to take. And so my wife's got a great job. So she is now running the home, running the boys to school, and she's working as I go out and I campaign. And it is a work-life balance nightmare to try to coordinate all those things.
What balance,
right? There is no balance. It's a pendulum back and forth. But we know the importance of what we're doing. My boys know the importance. They're not used to Dad being gone as much as I am. but they want Dad to be governor. They want Dad to protect the state. They've seen different parts of Iowa as they travel with us when I can have them with me. and they realize how important this is. So we're all in literally and figuratively as a family right now.
Yeah. I think it's really valuable that you can show your kids the why too,
Yep.
not just dad's gone.
100%. Yeah.
Everybody's buy-in is important.
Yeah. And we were talking earlier in the truck, the importance of kids at a young age seeing what it's like to volunteer, seeing what it's like to get involved. And at an early age, them realizing that it's actually very beneficial, but it's also cool. It's a good thing. It's cool. It's fun to get involved. And my boys are seeing that in spades right now. My 10-year-old loves it because he wants me to win governor so we can invite Dude Perfect to the Capitol to do trick shots. My 8-year-old just wants to be famous. So we got some work to do with him. But
well, yeah. I mean, you got to give them the perks,
That's
I suppose. Right. Okay, so you had to quit your job because?
So 2 reasons. One, by code, in the role that I was in, I was not allowed to get involved in politics. So for 5 years, I could not politic at all, couldn't get involved in different political campaigns, races, or anything. So technically, it would have been illegal for me to run for office and hold the position that I was in. I did not know that when we decided that I was going to resign, though, because I told my wife, if I'm going to do this, we got to go all in, and I will not be able to do physically or mentally both of these jobs at the same time. So we made a commitment for me to resign, and then we found by code I would need to anyway. So it was kind of a good
kind of worked out that you were mentally prepared for that.
I was as prepared as I could be once we realized I couldn't maintain the role anyway. So yeah, and we haven't looked back. It's been, it's challenging, but at the same time, like I said, it's worth it.
Mm-hmm. Well, yeah. And what's not challenging, right? I mean, you pick your challenges and it's worthwhile.
That's exactly right. I did an interview with Steve Deace not too long ago, and I don't normally listen to the interviews that I give just because a whole series of things, but I was told to watch the conclusion of that interview, and it was Aaron McIntyre kind of summing up the interview, and he said something people don't realize is that Adam had a very comfortable life. I had the department running well. We were getting a lot of very big projects done on behalf of the governor. I was home at 6:30. I was coaching the boys' Little League team. We've got this little acreage. I'm able to mow. I'm able to do things around the farm. And this completely disrupted all that. And I hadn't thought about that until I heard someone else say that we were very comfortable. Yeah. We were, and now it's a complete disruption, but that's not a bad thing. Right. It just means it's going to stretch us. It's going to make us better as a family. It's going to make me better as a leader, both as a father and a leader, hopefully, of the state. So I don't think we should be afraid of change and challenge, because I think it makes us better at the end of the day.
Absolutely. I wholeheartedly agree with that. Okay, so why politics? I mean, is this really your first kind of go at the political route?
100%.
Yeah.
Yeah. So I lovingly say I'm not a politician. I lovingly say I don't like politics at the end of the day. We need, I believe, leaders that have seen the real world, who've had their boots dirty, who've gotten their hands dirty, who've failed, who've succeeded. And I'm somebody through the business world that I've experienced success. I've also experienced failure. I saw that in my baseball background. I was a closer. So there were games that I lost for the team, which meant that I had to get back up, get out there the next day and try to save the game for the team. So you're looking at somebody and listening to somebody that is not a politician. I'm a very real world operator who's experienced success, experienced failure, and it shaped me, frankly, for a time such as this.
Can you give an example of a time you failed and how it changed you?
Yeah. So I can give you two. One is a sports story, and the other one is an actual business story. So it was a game that we were playing to go and be the host of the conference championship. And we were up, I believe, by 1. So I was the closer. They put me in the game. I think I walked the first guy. Next guy hit a little dribbler back to me as the guy was stealing second, and I airmailed the ball over the first baseman's head, tied the game. Next batter gets a base hit. The guy that was on base scores, and we lost the game. It was just devastating. I was devastated. And I had to figure out, okay, number one, how am I going to get back out on the mound and earn the trust and respect of my team after I just lost this game, which means that now we have to travel, I think it was to South Dakota for the conference tournament, when we could have had it in our own backyard. And I'll never forget that moment. I left the clubhouse and I was extremely angry. And I got behind the van, And I didn't think anybody was around. And I slammed my bag on the ground and I turned around and I saw the Phillies scout was standing there. So he saw my emotion come out right. And I didn't want anybody to see that. And he came up to me and he said, I watched the whole game. I saw what happened to you. He goes, I saw you maintain composure. I saw you get behind the van and you thought you were alone. And he said, I appreciate that. He said, always remember somebody's watching. But number two, you held it together until you got around here. And so I learned a lot in that moment. And so there's a lot of times you face emotional situations and you got to be able to take a breath and go, okay, what is really going on here? What's really at the core of the issue? And then make a good decision from there. Don't behave so emotionally all the time. So that taught me a ton in that moment. Another situation was with the manufacturing company here in Iowa. I was on a contract with them to help them grow and expand. And what I identified is that my personality, my work style was not going to work with this company. And what we found very early on was that I was either going to have to change my style or I was going to lose the gig. And so it came down to, I consider it a failure because I lost the gig. I was not willing and able to change my leadership style inside as a family-run business. And I was creating problems within the family with my leadership style. And I refused to change who I was in that. Now, I'm not trying to spin that into a positive thing. Like I lost the contract, left, and I consider that a failure, but I also consider it a moment for me where I had to learn whether or not I was going to change and adapt my style to sort of save a contract or not. I feel okay about it at the end of the day, but that one always kind of stings because it's like, it feels like I had an opportunity and I lost it there.
Right. Yeah, but you're so right. A lot of times we're faced with that. I could easily change, but do I want to?
Right.
Is that what's best? That's some good
Yeah.
self-awareness.
Yep, exactly.
Okay, speaking of your leadership style, and I mean, you've had plenty of opportunity over the years to lead people, and you're obviously looking to lead the state of Iowa. How do you handle that when you're leading people who don't necessarily agree with you?
That's a great question. Well, and I can give you a very, again, real world example. So when I led the Department of Administrative Services for the state, that department has 350 people directly in that department, and we oversaw the inner workings of 20,000 employees across the state. So it was a massive department that had a ton of authority, a ton of control, and I had a leadership team of 9. Now, that leadership team, they knew my background. One, they knew I was appointed by Governor Reynolds. So inherently, it's kind of assumed that you're on the Republican side of politics in that, not being a politician, but that's kind of assumed when you get appointed by a Republican governor.
Yep.
They also knew that I've got a faith background. They know that I'm a credentialed minister in the Assemblies of God, and they also knew I had a business background. Not everybody on my leadership team felt the same way I did. We didn't share the same worldview. But when I got introduced as their director, and I was told not to do this, but I did it anyway, I went in there and I said, I'm going to need your help. I don't know everything about accounting, HR, procurement, all these different areas. So I'm going to need you to help me learn. I'm going to need you to bring me information. I'm going to need you to give me recommendations. And you could see the air just sort of lift in the room because they knew they were looking at somebody who was going to let them do their jobs. And I had to rely on their expertise. And what happened because of that is we developed a phenomenal team because I was willing to ask questions. I was willing to try to understand before I would make a decision. And they started to see me behave very consistently on a regular basis. And so that consistency created a trust within me. It created a trust within the team. And then, frankly, when some of my leadership team or some employees kind of downstream on the org chart experienced challenge, either in their personal life or their professional life, they felt comfortable coming to me for guidance for other areas outside of business. And so I often had people showing up to my office that maybe weren't faith-minded or whatever, and they'd say, hey, you know how to talk to God, right? And I'm like, well, I mean, we all can, you know, and I'm like, well, what do you mean? And so they'd experience a problem at home or whatever, but I got them introduced to different areas to try to help them. So regardless of our backgrounds and differences, we all connected personally. And that's kind of how I lead. I let others do their jobs. I find experts and we just solve problems at the end of the day. And what happens is it creates a trusting team. It creates a team that is very dynamic, that is a bunch of problem solvers. And I'm excited to do that across the state because we've got an opportunity right now to really do some really good things here in the state of Iowa.
Where did you develop your leadership skills? I mean, you mentioned you worked with your dad.
Yeah.
What was that like?
Yeah, it was amazing. My dad, so my father passed away 3.5 years ago. He was my mentor. He was like my guy that I went to. I refer to him as one of the most cold-hearted people I've ever met too. He had no emotion on anything. My mother is full of emotion. So I'm just this blend of no emotion and emotion. It's this weird deal. But anyway, my dad taught me a lot. He taught me how to be patient. He taught me how to analyze. He taught me how to ask questions. He taught me how to really be able to separate friendship from a business decision as well. There were times that we had a great relationship with somebody, and I said, I thought you were friends with him. And he goes, it doesn't matter. Like this decision needs to be made, and you've got to be able to separate that. And you do everything with integrity. When at his funeral, a gentleman got up and gave a speech and just talked about my dad's integrity the entire time. And I learned integrity from my father and just the importance of making consistent decisions, making good decisions, making the right decision at the time. And if you made the wrong decision, how to course correct and move on to make a better decision going forward. To me, that's integrity too. Hey, I made the wrong decision, but we're going to fix it and we're going to move on in a different way. So he taught me a ton about leadership, and I miss him because he would love what I'm doing right now. He'd be one of my drivers right now. He'd be bored listening to the same stump speech over and over again. But yeah, I miss him because I think he'd have a lot to say right now.
Oh, I'm sure. What do you think you want your legacy to be? What do you want to be known for?
Yeah. I want to be known as a man of faith, number one. I want to be known as somebody that has integrity, that's full of integrity with a foundation of faith. And I want my boys to be very proud to call me their dad. I mean, that's what I want. But I think that starts with the faith foundation. And I think you build from there. And so I think that's absolutely critical to have that faith foundation so that you can make those consistent decisions, admit when you're wrong, celebrate when you're right, but then realize the next day is a brand new day and we're going to have a whole nother series of things. But I think about what other people tell me about my father, and I want people to say the same things to my boys about me, and I want them to be very proud of their upbringing and everything. And so this whole campaign thing it provides an unbelievable window for them to see that on a real-time basis, and it's just really neat to be part of this whole thing.
Absolutely. So we lost Smoke's dad about 3 years ago as well, and the amount of times we say, well, what would Jeff do? Because he worked very closely with his dad his entire life. I mean, and it's a tough transition, but that's something with the podcast now. I get my boys' dad stories on the record. So someday they can go back and say, oh, this is how dad handled that.
That's how he handled that. Nope, exactly. It's exactly right.
Yeah. It's a unique opportunity, that a little window into the lives of parents that we wouldn't necessarily share with our kids otherwise. They can look back and say, oh, that was my dad.
That's right. Well, and now, so my boys are 10 and 8, and my 8-year-old wrestles, and we were at a very small school, Martindale St. Mary's, and at his wrestling tournament, and the boys saw a gentleman approach me that was not friendly. I know who you are, and I don't agree with you. And my nature, it was to ask questions. And so I just started asking him questions, what's the problem here, there? And we ended up having a very good conversation where he went, oh, I had heard different things. And I said, well, I appreciate you giving me a chance to kind of clear some things up before we went down different routes. My boys witnessed that. And so now they will ask me questions when they hear somebody say something or whatever. It provides them an opportunity to understand really what I think is how to react in some of those situations too. So it's a wonderful learning opportunity, not just for me, but for them as well.
Well, and it gives you an opportunity to teach in a way that maybe you wouldn't have otherwise.
Right, exactly. Real world teaching.
Yeah, exactly. What's one of the things you're most proud of that you've accomplished throughout your career so far?
Yeah, it's a great question. Pride for me, I got to be very careful with that because as a former baseball, I still got that sort of pride in me. And so I try to be very careful when I think about things like that. I am very, very happy, and I would say very, very proud at how I led the Department of Administrative Services. That was a challenge. I mean, it was a I walked in there on day one, and there hadn't been a director in place permanently for, I think it was 5 or 6 years. It was in disarray from the outside looking in. What I discovered is that the team that was in place was amazing. And so by just letting them do their jobs, by challenging them to get better, by challenging them to bring solutions, not just problems, it formed an amazing team that's still operating right now. I didn't want to resign. They didn't want me to resign, but we all knew I had to in order to do this, obviously. And the things that I hear from others still inside state government is that the department is still running incredibly well. I've got employees showing up at different events that I'm doing just to say hello because they hear I'm in the area. It gives me a tremendous sense of pride to have been thrown into such a challenging situation, to have been able to lead that organization with integrity, and then develop the relationships I did with folks that, again, not all see the same political side that I do. But I love it. It's just really neat to have them show up. And I do find a good sense of pride from that.
Yeah. I mean, relationships are everything,
Yep.
right? I mean, that's the whole reason anything works. It's
100%.
Yeah.
Yeah.
You've
We
got
were
on your
built for
team
relationship.
Yeah.
Exactly.
Exactly. Okay. So break it down for me. Like, what did your day-to-day look like in that role? I mean, what were you actually doing?
Yeah, I was sitting waiting for problems to show up on my desk. No, several things. One, so I oversaw state accounting, state human resources, state procurement, state major maintenance, and then became part of the special projects division. We also oversaw state payroll. So all the ins and outs of the taxpayer dollar flowed through my department. And so quite literally, I would show up to the office at 6:45, 7, and I would just kind of clear the deck on challenges from either, the Friday before or the day before. And then at about 8 a.m., problems just started coming into the email box over the phone. People would walk into the office and go, hey, we got this issue. So it was a nonstop problem-solving activity. And so every day we would try to figure out, okay, how to better enhance what our services were to other agencies. And then special projects came. So we had to figure out how to, one, put a project plan together, keep that project moving, and still do our day-to-day activities as well, which was on the HR side. When you're dealing with 20,000 employees, you get requests from every agency on a regular basis. Hey, we need a pay raise here. We need to hire this person here. And oftentimes I would say, no, we're not going to allow that in the budget. It doesn't fit with policy. So I was kind of the wet blanket of state government for a long time. But it was nonstop problem solving, and it was nonstop project management on a regular basis in so many areas. It just kind of blew my mind as well. One project that the governor put on my desk, she put a big old folder on my desk and said, this is now your project. And it was the Iowa juvenile home that sat in Toledo, Iowa, which is near Marshalltown, Tama County. And for 10 years, this gigantic building and these other buildings on 27 acres just sat vacant. And the state was spending $250,000 a year just to keep it from being vandalized and to keep the yard mowed. So for 10 years, $2.5 million gone. And I said, we need to look at this a little differently. So I called the county and I said, I want to transfer this property to you. And they said, well, we'd love that. We're just talking about that. So I put a project plan together, put single points of contact in place. And in 9 months, I transferred the entire property to the county. The county transferred the giant building to the school. The school then renovated that building. It is a functional junior high right now. Kids are actually going to school and they're learning downtown Toledo, Iowa. We helped them demolish the old buildings on the property, and now they're selling lots on that bare ground for employees of the beef processing plant right down the street. So in 9 months, we took a business approach, a project management approach, and pulled off something that no one could get done in 10 years. And so that takes a lot of planning and a lot of effort and a lot of stick-to-itiveness. But that then led into other projects at the same time. And so I spent every day stewarding the taxpayer dollar, thinking through different challenges and making sure that, one, the governor's priorities were met, agency priorities were met, and that the taxpayer was being stewarded at the same time.
Yeah. I think a lot of people's frustration with the government is the inefficiencies and maybe the lack of business-minded decisions behind some of the things they do. So
100%. I joke, but I'm very serious. I spent 5 years in the belly of the government beast, and the government is really good at one thing, and that is screwing things up. I'll give you a prime example in the cattle industry. So the governor asked me to sell state farmland. And so at the time, we had 4,800 acres of farm ground that the state owned. It was mainly around prisons and different things. And for like 100 years, it sat and it was just state owned. And so the charge was sell this to local farmers, local active farmers, can't go to China, can't go to out-of-state billionaires. And so I worked with the Attorney General's office, and I created a program called Iowans Buy Iowa, BUY, and was able to sell through that program. Before I resigned, we'd sold 2,200 acres of state farm ground to local farmers. And it was an absolute home run. They're still continuing to sell that ground through that program right now. But in the middle of that project, which was an absolute home run, I had a meeting with Iowa Prison Industries, and they said, "Hey, we've got a cattle operation." And I said, "You have a what?" I said, "We got a cattle operation." And he said, "Well, how many cows do you have?" And he goes, 14. And I said, "You have 14 cows?" And he said, "Yeah." So I called my buddy from Indianola who runs a cattle operation. I said, "Hey, I got 14 cows. How do we get?" He goes, "I'll just bring my trailer up. We'll go to the auction, call it good." And so I'm like, done. Well, I get back to my office, and it turns out we had 792 head of cattle.
Oh, well, that's a little different.
A little different than 14. And so a whole series of questions I had just on that. But I said, "Well, what are the financials? Like, what are we doing?" And so they weren't training inmates on anything. It was just state employees running a state cattle operation. And they gave me 2 years of financials, and they'd lost $250,000 in those years. I'm like, we're getting out of the cattle business here. And so then I was able to put a project. I learned about cow-calf operations and how they got to be weaned before you can sell them. I learned a whole bunch of really cool stuff.
Yeah.
But we got rid of the cattle operation. So now we no longer have state-owned cows. Apparently, they were very nice. I didn't get to meet any of them. But so we got rid of that. But that was just a shining example of what can happen in government when you're not paying attention, when there's lack of transparency, when there's lack of accountability. And I saw that all throughout state government. And when you take a business approach to it, a common sense approach to it, a taxpayer approach to it, you can get a lot of things done, and a lot of people can be very, very successful along the way too. So it's an unbelievable experience.
That is mind-blowing, actually.
I mentioned that story. I forget where I was at, and the guy goes, "I bought some of those."
Ah. There are a lot of businesses that can be run without a lot of attention. I don't think cattle are necessarily one of those.
Didn't seem like the right thing to do.
No.
Yeah. It seemed like the very wrong thing to do
I think
from my perspective.
Maybe made the right call there.
Yeah. That's what can happen. And when you don't take that kind of common sense approach, you leave yourself at risk, and our tax dollars are too important.
Absolutely. It's important to have the right people in the right roles.
100%.
Okay, so why Adam for governor?
Yeah.
I mean, you
question.
kind of covered it, but
for
those who aren't good at reading between the lines, give us the...
Yeah, I can give you kind of a portion of my stump speech.
Okay.
Because everything I say comes from the heart, and sometimes that damages my communications team a little bit, but they get over it. No, joking. I can say this. I am custom fit for this role, because when you look at the position of governor, really the governor is the CEO of the state of Iowa, and if you look at it from a business perspective, which when you look at government from a business perspective, there's a ton of opportunity. There's a ton of opportunity for savings. There's a ton of opportunity for efficiency. And you need to really have three things when you're looking at a candidate for governor. One, can that candidate operate? Can the candidate operate the state of Iowa? Because you're coming in to a monster machine of government, and you need to be able to understand how state government operates. There's not a resume that can stand up against mine from an operational perspective as what could be considered a COO type of role for the state. Having done that for 5 years very successfully, I just have to get my badge back. I can badge in and I'm ready to go. I know the agencies. I know the players. I know where more efficiencies can be gained from day one. And having operated for 5 years, there's not a learning curve. I can operate our state on day one. The second thing I talk about from a CEO/governor perspective is culture. The CEO is in charge of culture, and they lead the charge for the culture of any business and would be the state. And having been in Iowa and worked with so many business owners at such a ground level in many cases, I know who Iowans are. We have grit. We've got hope. We've got faith. We get up early. We go to bed late. We solve problems. We get dirty when we do it. We get back up when we do it again. That's who we are as Iowans. And I'm the type of person and would be the type of governor that would champion that on a regular basis because our kids need to see that. The kids need to see, hey, let's get off devices. Let's go get dirty outside. Let's go break something and fix it. From a cultural perspective, I'm an absolute champion for skilled trades. I will be incentivizing skilled trades on the economic side, but also I want to see vocational studies, industrial arts back in schools to a large degree across the state. Put them in 7th, 8th grade, 9th grade, get kids working with their hands, get kids using their minds, get off the screens, get dirty, and use your gifts and talents in a way that's going to help not just at your home, but out in the community and get involved. I will be a huge champion for the local church. I think the church has kind of stepped back and let the government creep in. And we spend a lot of time relying on the government when we shouldn't, because again, the government will screw things up on a regular basis. So we, the people, need to reign. I'm also going to champion from a cultural perspective, families getting back to the dinner table. There's a huge mental health crisis in this world and in this state and in this country right now. If you do the studies, if you do the research, most of mental health problems start at the home. And I am going to try to make dinner with the family cool. We need to get kids back at the dinner table, looking their parents in the eye, grandparents sitting down, getting to know their grandkids, because we're letting devices, we're letting internet, social media raise our children. And once families realize it's absolutely critical to sit down and have a meal, turn off the TV, focus on each other, talk about your day, that's going to change the game on the front end of the mental health crisis, and families are going to improve, communities are going to improve, the state's going to improve. And I think that can actually change the world at the same time. So you'll see that from me on a cultural side of things. I can't legislate that, but we can make it cool and we can make it fun. And then third, the governor is going to have to work with the legislature because the people elect their local leaders, the people elect their House, their Senate. And so I'm somebody who's been working with the legislature for the last 5 years. I've got a great relationship with the legislature and look forward to expanding that. I was appointed by the governor, and my second appointment from the governor, I was confirmed 50-0 by the Senate, which included Democrats as well. And so they know me, they know how I operate, and they know I was great in that role. And I feel like it will be a great thing for the state. So that's how I sort of separate myself in those three categories: operational, cultural, and then from a legislative perspective as well. We're hitting the campaign trail hard. I'm a candidate that I've got scars. I've lost battles. I've won battles. That develops a spine in people. And my spine is now steel, and I'm fearless and I'm unafraid. And I will not back down in the face of adversity or challenge. And that, I think, has been one of the sort of rallying cries that I've had across the state that resonates is we need in a time like this, a leader who's willing to step up, who's willing to stand out and willing to speak truth into situations where some people oftentimes, because it's not politically expedient, won't say something. But I'm a candidate that will say something because our families, our children, our communities, they mean too much to me. And what I tell people on a regular basis is that I fight for my wife and I fight for my boys every single day. And I will fight for your families every single day, nonstop.
I love that. Thank you for being here.
Thank you.
I appreciate it so much. I think people are going to get a lot out of this episode and hearing from you. And I hope that they choose to follow you and see what you do next.
I appreciate that. Now, if anybody has any desire to learn more, adamsteen.com is our website, STEEN, adamsteen.com. And we'll be there to answer any questions as best we can as well. So I appreciate this opportunity.
Awesome. Yeah, I appreciate you being here. Thanks for tuning in to this episode of the Rural Dispatch. I hope you found something valuable to take back to your own operation. If you enjoyed this episode, please subscribe, leave a review, and share it with a friend. You can keep up with me between episodes on socials at Behrens & Co., or join our email list on our website to get new episodes delivered straight to your inbox every Wednesday. Until next time, keep those wheels turning. We'll talk soon. I want to share something we've recently started using, a new app called Beef Hub. It was built by cattle haulers for cattle haulers, and it's full of the info you actually want and need as a driver. They're constantly updating it with the most current details for the places that we go every day. If you're in this line of work, it's worth checking out. Use my referral code RURAL when you sign up and let us know what you think.